Happy Easter from one of my favourite places in Bradford, which is the Mirror Pool here in City Park, right in the centre of this glorious city. When we don't have any COVID restrictions, it is an absolutely fabulous place. There are kids running around, there are families with picnics, enjoying the place from every different background. Today it feels a bit different. We're not actually meant to be really connecting with one another because we're still in lockdown, and it just feels very different. This is a great place to begin some reflections, but sometimes we can't really see properly. Somebody shared with me that they had been at a time when they were really struggling with their mental health, and they found it really hard to look in mirrors because when they looked in the mirror and saw themselves, they couldn't really recognize who they were. They didn't like to see themselves in the state that they were. But what was really wonderful was that that person's friends and families had actually written all over the mirror in liquid chalk, and they'd written things like, "You are loved," "You're beautiful," a picture of a rainbow. You would have thought that all that writing would obscure their reflection, but actually it clarified it. It enabled them to see who they really were because they saw it through the reality of what the people had written on it. This past year, the COVID virus has, as it were, thrown a mirror up to us as a society. It's shown us, for example, the best that we can be. Some of the people who work here at the hospital, other people elsewhere in the NHS, people on our frontline services, people in public services, all sorts of unsung heroes, people raising money, for example, our very own Keighley-born Captain Sir Tom, all show us our society at our best. But COVID has also reflected back some of the less pleasant things. COVID has thrown up to us a mirror about even the existing health inequalities that we're prepared to tolerate as a society. I'm here in the centre of Bradford. If I were to travel just 10 miles from here to some of the more wealthy areas of our district, the health inequalities become really sharp. There's a 10-year life expectancy gap between inner city Bradford and parts of the Wharfe Valley. And it's not just about our district, it's a mirror held up to our world. It's been really unedifying to see politicians around the world squabbling as to who gets the vaccine and who doesn't. And when I look into that mirror, I don't have to look very far to see myself. Scolmore Cemetery. This place has seen far too much activity over the last year. When I think of some of the people I know who are buried here, it makes me extremely sad, and actually all sorts of other feelings, even anger. People who've been taken from us far too young, and their families left devastated. When Mary Magdalene went to Jesus' tomb that first Easter Sunday morning, she was blinded by tears. We don't know much of her background. Luke tells us that Jesus had delivered her from 7 demons. But she was clearly an extraordinarily strong woman, a real leader, but somebody who had had real issues with her own identity. And in meeting Jesus, she had found someone who was able to show her, as it were, a true reflection of who she was. Somebody who had written across all the lies that she had been told all her life in big, bold letters. You are loved, you are beautiful. Jesus had given her forgiveness, freedom from judgment. But the problem was, the Friday before, all of that new hope which had risen in her had been devastated. She'd seen this man who had loved her, whom she had loved, who had shown her the leader inside of her, murdered, strung up on a cross, and all that hope had died. And yet she was faithful. All the other disciples had run away, and she had stayed with the story. She had stayed with Jesus. She had stayed with the body. She had seen him buried. So here, on that first Easter morning, she came to the tomb and she saw that the stone had been rolled away. And as Mary stands there, blinded by tears, she sees this figure coming. And it's a garden, and so she thinks, this must be the gardener. She goes to him and she says, "What's going on? Have you taken the body?" And then this moment happens where realization dawns, and then he says her name. He says Mary. And she looks and she recognizes him, and she says, "Rabboni," teacher. She recognizes that it's Jesus. One of the things which is almost the favorite part, my favorite part of this job, is when I get to do baptisms and confirmations. In a confirmation service, I stand in front of the candidate stands in front of me, and I put my hands on their head and I look them in the eye and I say, "God has called you by name. He has made you his own." Extraordinary words. And it's as if in that moment, it's like Jesus is speaking to that person by name, like Jesus is speaking to Mary and saying, whatever else you see in the mirror, this is the truth about you. You are a child of God. You have been forgiven, you've been healed, you've been restored, you've been offered a new start in life. And often in those moments, there's a real backstory to the people I get to confirm and baptize. And Jesus is offering us something really radically new, just as he offered to Mary Magdalene that first Easter. It's as if she actually sees a true reflection of herself in the mirror, in Jesus. She sees somebody who has been redeemed, who has been forgiven, who has been healed, who's been given new life and a new purpose. Because Jesus doesn't, he says, don't hold on. It's not about this moment. It's about what are you going to do with it. It's about the future. And Jesus says, I want you to be an apostle to the apostles. I want you to go and tell the disciples that you've seen me. And it's as if he offers Mary a new hope and a new task. And for me, that is my prayer for us this Easter, as we begin to emerge out of lockdown, as we begin to see the new life springing up around us. What kind of society do we want to be? What kind of people do we want to be to inhabit that society? Are we going to grab the new opportunities that God offers us as we come out to build something better? And the gift that Jesus offered to Mary then, he offers to us now, which is to look into the mirror and see ourselves as we really are, warts and all, with all of the suffering, with all of the pain, with all of the backstory, but to see ourselves in that mirror and written, as it were, across that mirror, the words of Jesus, I love you, you're forgiven, you've got a new life in me. You can be part of something which I'm offering to the whole world, which is a new transformed world, a world where creation can be transformed as well. Will you grasp with me this new life, this Easter that God gives us, and hear the words that he speaks to you as he speaks to me? I love you. Happy Easter.